Welcome to Rogers TV's Canada Showcase. I'm your host, Mike Vecchio. To start the show, we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lune-Pewauk peoples who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations of Turtle Island. Today's program will feature stories from coast to coast from Rogers TV and Shaw Spolight stations across the country. We'll start right here in London at Labatt Park, the world's oldest continually operating baseball grounds.
Labatt Park is located at the forks of the Thames River in the heart of downtown London, Ontario. The park started life as Tecumseh Park in 1877. Labatt Park holds the distinction of being the oldest continually operated baseball grounds in the world. In 1994, Labatt Park was designated a historical site by London City Council. The park suffered the first of many floods in 1883, which saw the park's grandstand and seating destroyed. The ballpark would be renovated later that year. The grandstand was rebuilt and the baseball diamond was realigned. The original home plate was in present-day center field. The new location of home plate was moved to where center field was in the original diamond layout. The home plate would now faced east towards downtown London. In 1937, the park again suffered a major flood. Labatt Brewing Company, which at that point owned the land, donated $10,000 to rebuild the grandstand and fix up the clubhouses. Labatt at that point deeded the land to the City of London. Professional baseball has graced the park over the years. The two most popular versions came in 1990 and 1999. In 1990, the Detroit Tigers relocated their AA team to Labatt Park. Again, the ballpark underwent a renovation with major upgrades to lights, clubhouse, dugouts, concession, and it marked the first time an electronic scoreboard was installed at the ballpark. During the AA Tigers' time at Labatt Park, the park's head groundskeeper, Mike Regan, won the 1990 Bean Clay Award for Best Natural Grass Field in North America. The Tigers won the Eastern League Championship in 1990. The team relocated to Trenton, New Jersey in 1993 as the owners cited declining attendance as the reason. In 1999, the park would become home to the London Werewolves. The team played in the American-based Frontier League. The Werewolves would win the Frontier League Championship at Labatt Park in 1999. The following season, during the home opener, Ontario-born Brett Gray would make history. Gray struck out 25 batters in a single game. The park over the years has been used for more than just a baseball diamond. At one point or another, the park has hosted bicycle racing, soccer games, football, track and field, wrestling, professional wrestling, boxing, political rallies, show jumping, the RCMP musical ride, and was famously the venue for a 21-gun salute to Queen Elizabeth II during her visit in June of 1997. The ballpark has seen its fair share of famous baseball players pass through. 4 players of note are legendary pitcher Satchel Paige, who is in the Baseball Hall of Fame, Londoner George Gibson, who played in the major leagues for 14 years, 12 with the Pirates and 2 with the New York Giants. George would win the World Series in 1909 as his Pirates beat Ty Cobb's Detroit Tigers. Gibson would go on to manage the Pirates and the Chicago Cubs. Gibson was elected into the Canadian Hall of Fame and was inducted into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame in 1987. Gibson was elected into the London Sports Hall of Fame in its first class in 2001. Frank Coleman is another baseball player who played in London. Coleman is also credited with founding London's minor baseball system. Coleman founded the Eager Beaver Baseball Association in 1955. Coleman played in the major leagues for the Pittsburgh Pirates from 1942 to 1946, and then played for the New York Yankees from 1946 to 1947. While with the Yankees, Coleman's roommate was Baseball Hall of Famer Yogi Berra. Coleman entered the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame in the class of 1999 and was inducted into the London Sports Hall of Fame in 2005. Last, but certainly not least, is Chatham-born pitching legend Fergie Jenkins. Jenkins was the first Canadian elected into Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame in 1991. Jenkins was the first Canadian to win the NL Cy Young Award, which is given to the best pitcher in each of the two leagues. In 1987, Jenkins was inducted into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Jenkins was made a member of the Order of Canada in 1979. For more information or tours of historic Labatt Park, you can visit labattparktours.ca.
Next up is a feature from Owen Sound on Tom Thompson, one of Canada's most influential artists of the 20th century.
Tom Thompson, born on August 5, 1877, is one of Canada's most influential artists of the 20th century. His distinctive painting style helped shape the sense of Canadian identity for many. Thompson grew up in the Owen Sound area, eventually working as a commercial artist in Toronto, but his passion was for landscape painting. Thompson made his first painting trip to Algonquin Park in 1912. With a few brushstrokes, he quickly captured the true spirit of the changing seasons and rugged landscape of the northern wilderness on small wooden boards with oil paint. His art and mysterious death in 1917 have influenced every Canadian generation since.
Thompson worked in tandem. Most of his friends would be the people who would become the Group of Seven. So they were a group of people who were working primarily in commercial art in Toronto, and they would go on weekend painting trips. Thompson would go up in April and basically paint spring arriving in the park, and then we get a job during the summertime, fire ranger, fishing guide, whatever he could do to make some money during the summertime. And then he would paint fall arriving in the park. And then when winter came, he would move back to Toronto and into the studio. Now, most of his friends would only come up on short painting trips over the time that Thompson was in Algonquin Park, but they were working in tandem to sort of develop this new vision of what the Canadian landscape would be. And so there was a movement away from sort of the calm, still waters to much more vibrant, being out in the wilderness, and then bringing those paintings back to people who primarily were living in the city and showing them the landscape of what at that time was called up north. There is the legend that's evolved after, and the sort of the mythic man that is developed. And that is one of the remnants that continues, and the interest in Thompson is, and the people who would become the Group of Seven helped encourage that, because they felt that Thompson's artwork really expanded on that idea of what the Canadian identity was. And it was a time that Canada was changing, and the First World War was on, and there was a lot of Canada really coming into its own. And through Thompson and the Group of Seven, it really opened the eyes of a lot of people when they were looking at his art, and that idealized the Canadian landscape. And they would go further afield and paint the Arctic and the Rockies, but Thompson was always centered out of that Algonquin Park time.
Ray Johnson was one of many Canadian artists that were influenced by Tom's artwork. Throughout her 40-year career, Johnson was driven to visually articulate the inner, rather than physical world, the unconscious, spiritual, and psychological forces that influenced how something is felt, rather than simply observed. In the late 80s, she moved away from the big city and shifted her focus to her surroundings in Fredericton, Ontario, where she lived and worked until the early 2000s. This exhibit focuses on her spiritually motivated depictions of land, water, and sky.
So she would have definitely been aware of Tom Thompson and his legacy. She exhibited here at the Tom because she was living not far away. And so I would say it's primarily the approach to capturing the landscapes that's similar to Tom. she would go out almost daily to her pond and create sketches from direct observation. And often she would mix the paint colors in advance in anticipation of what the lighting would be like that day. And so it was all about just really like slow and steady, careful observation. And if you look at her sketches side by side, they're very similar in composition because she was looking at the same pond, but they vary significantly based on the time of day that she was painting, the time of year, and the atmospheric conditions. But also, like Tom, it's about developing a deep connection to a specific place. So for him, that was largely Algonquin Park, from having spent so much time there. And for her, it was this pond and going out there every day. And you start to embody it over time. What they convey is the inner experience of being a part of that environment. And so when you look at them as a viewer, you feel the emotion behind it and a little bit of the psychology of the artist if you spend some time with it. And so I hope that that's what people see and feel when they visit the show.
I think it's the challenge and the excitement of it.
I don't know, I think it's really just kind of that rush of you go out and you never really know what's going to happen.
It's not an easy fish to catch, and then when you even see one, it's like an adrenaline rush, and like that part of it is, I think, like the addicting part.
I feel like it's like Christmas morning for some people. You finally get it in the net, you get the hooks out, and you just get to grab it, put her on the bump board, and take a picture with it. It's just so exciting.
Yes, girl.
Oh, there we go.
That was good.
That was good. Never seen them coming on here. Holy moly.
Oh, I see the scale come on.
There's the shakes.
There they are.
That's a good release.
There's definitely not as many females in musky fishing sport, but it's on the rise, I would say, and that's great to see.
Lots of females are getting into it now. I think it's just kind of nice to get out and try it. I think, like Chelsea said, anybody can do it. You just gotta hopefully have the patience for it if you don't catch anything, and just keep trying.
One of our favorite things to do is pack good snacks, because we always joke that if we're not going to catch anything, at least we can eat good while we're in the boat. Maybe 2 summers ago we went out and Christina literally packed like a full supper for us. We had like potato salad and like ribs in the boat. So we enjoy ourselves even if we're not catching fish.
We just fish well in the boat together. It's always a good time, lots of laughs, lots of food.
I thought we were gonna have to get out. Not bad.
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
One of my favorites is probably my first Eagle Lake muskie. I worked pretty hard for it. Still my biggest fish today at a 46.
On opening weekend with my dad and my brother, we were out for Father's Day, and I caught a 50 and a half, so I caught my new personal best on Father's Day, which was pretty cool.
One of my other most memorable catches, though, is probably one of the fish in mine and Christina's tournament we fished in. We caught a 45, and that was pretty exciting. We knew we were gonna have an okay day at least once we got that one in the boat.
Like, we went in just looking for one fish, got 4 and took second, so that was pretty wild. That's definitely a top memory. I guess it's kind of a lifestyle for some people here for sure, right? I think if you grow up with it, it's really what you know and it's what you love for sure. I think there's lots of people here that love to do a lot of other things, but I honestly just feel lucky that I can get out any day possible to go fishing for sure.
Are you checking, buddy?
Going with the trilogy? Yeah. Orange, black. Yeah, I mean, you just enjoy the day. You're outside, enjoying nature. You get that chance, it just adds all the excitement to the day. Oh, there we go. Oh my God.
Like I plan my holidays around fishing a lot of the time. So once walleye opens, you go for walleye a little bit. You anticipate muskies for the whole time, and then once it opens, you just kind of hit it hard until the water freezes over and you can't go anymore. And then you just start the countdown until the next year.
We take you now to Tobique First Nation, where Indigenous musician Mike Byrne has a new album and a powerful new single. Sean DeLong has more on this story.
Called Ancestors, this is the new single from Mike Byrne. It echoes similar to progressive rock music. The Indigenous musician wrote the song after a visit to a holistic healer.
I was grieving my uncle's death, and a few family members that went through the angel reading process before told me that it might help me, you know, with the grieving period and stuff. So I went to the angel reader, and my grandfather came through. That's been deceased, and I actually never met him before. He said that I should honor our ancestors, the people that went before us. And I always had that in the back of my head, you know, when I'm writing music and stuff. And I didn't really know how to go around to making a song that, you know, honors our ancestors and the people that went before us. But it just came out there one day, and you know, just at home and strumming on a few chords, and you know, the words started coming out, and that's how Ancestors was created.
Byrne spent time with award-winning bands Kicking Crotch and District Avenue, but likes being a solo artist. And now, with help from musicians and producers in the US, Byrne harnessed modern technology and old-fashioned know-how to record Ancestors and a full album called Wabanaku, showing how during the COVID pandemic, musicians from all corners of the world can overcome odds to make music.
A lot of people were losing out on you know, money and stuff, because people are used to touring and doing shows to bring in an income. But I've noticed a lot of people doing online shows, you know, on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and all that stuff. And I think that helped a lot of musicians out big time. Ancestors told me to say, there will be better days.
But despite the joy of new music, Byrne says the album rings with sadness and reflection on the challenges facing First Nations throughout Canada.
And there's not a lot of work, you know, so there is a lot of poverty here, and there's always a good side and there's always a bad side in any place that you're at. But you know, this place needs a lot of healing. You know, it's a beautiful place and has beautiful people here. We need healing.
Not enough is being done for our First Nations people.
A feeling his father shares. Involved in local and national First Nations issues for decades, Eldon Bernard says Canada must do more to right the wrongs.
Apologies is great, but I can't sit here and lie to you and say I forgive them, because I don't. Because I had my brother and sister in residential schools, and they've passed since then. And the stories they told me, it's unbelievable what stories they told me.
Tobique First Nation is also home to musician Jeremy Dutcher, who is also well known for his talent. Chief Ross Purley is proud of both artists' achievements.
Something that we as a community are all proud of. We're proud of our musicians, our artists, and you know, we have a history of musicians in our community, and yeah, we celebrate them as much as we can.
As Byrne plays on, he is working on a second solo album. At Nagukuk Tobique First Nation, this is Sean DeLong.
The water is a major resource for all of the Okanagan Valley. That's our drinking water source. It's just too important to just be filled with garbage.
We are about to head into the water and go see how much trash we can pull out of the water to make it better for everyone else.
Lots of boats go by, lots of people using it. Gets a lot of use every year.
One of the regional park staffs we've done, we found a iPhone, came across the owner. So he said, you can keep the phone, I don't need it. So now it sits on my shelf. The iPhone still works as well. I've been diving for about a year and 2 months. It is something that I try to do at least 4 times a week because that's how much I like being in the water. And the only thing I have to focus on while I'm diving is breathing. Super calm, and it's all in all just a fun time. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a marine biologist, and this is the closest thing I can get to it around here. I also love making my YouTube videos. It shows people what's down there, so they get to see what's in all the lakes around the Okanagan. Find a whole bunch of little stuff that most people would slip out of their hands or they'd go swimming with and drop it. You never know what you're going to find in the water, and it's always a mystery when you do find things. Hoping to find a few treasures, but as much trash as we can find is always good.
Have you ever found the Ogopogo before?
Well, technically we found the Ogopogo. We found a statue made out of concrete. It is located at Paul's Tomb at the bottom of Knox Mountain.
We surprisingly saw one of his videos where he was actually cleaning the lake bottom off of one of our regional parks, and we thought, you know, this is a young man that's doing something at one of our regional parks. We'd like to help him by dealing with the garbage that he collects, but also by providing access. It allowed them to do a social dive and at the same time do some good while they're out there having some fun.
We're mainly doing it to keep it safe for little kids that would be swimming. Kids can step on broken glass, broken cans, anything of that sort, and we just don't want that to happen because it's not fun. Keep everything out of the water as best we can. Protects the fish habitat because fish can get stuck in the bottles. Bottles I've pulled out of the water, I have actually found fish still inside of them. The more we get out, the less fish get stuck and die.
Garbage in the lake, nobody can see unless you are a diver, so it's really important to tie into divers like AJ.
I struggle finding people to dive with on a regular basis to continue doing what I want to do, and that's keeping the lakes and everything clean and get people out there and doing something different. My future thing would be to do diving full time and constantly be in the water every single day. Don't throw your cans and bottles into the lake. I get that it's out of sight, out of mind, but we have to go in and clean it up, and it's affecting the habitat that we only have one chance to keep clean, and you guys are destroying it.
Great food and drink have always been a natural pairing. Combine it with some hot summer weather, and what could be better? In this next segment, we're in Saint John, New Brunswick, to take in a tasty barbecue recipe and finish it off with a refreshing beverage.
Happy Canada Day!
Welcome to Rothsay, New Brunswick. This is the Thomas family compound here in Rothsay. I'm Scott Thomas.
And I am Dana Van Dollewer.
And we're celebrating the summer together with our friends. And we thought it might be fun to come to you via television and share a couple of ideas to help zhuzh up your Canada Day celebrations.
Absolutely.
So we thought maybe a little food and maybe a little drink. I'm going to show you pork belly bites.
And I will show you a few pairings that might go with those pork belly bites.
I'm very excited. Through the magic of television, let's go to my smoker. Just having a little look, the pork belly bites are well on their way. If you go to your butcher, and you can do this at a grocery store or one of our local butchers, you can ask for pork belly. It comes as a large slab, and it's what they generally make bacon from. What you're gonna wanna do is get maybe a 6, 8, or 10-pound piece of pork belly and start cutting it into 1-inch chunks. When you do, it's gonna look a little bit like this. This is some raw pork belly cut into 1-inch chunks. You're gonna wanna take those chunks and then spice them down. I went with a Kansas City rub because that's what I like. Once you have some rub on your pork belly, you can then put it into your cooking device. Now in my case, I happen to have a smoker, which I've set to 250 degrees. But you can do this on a barbecue at 250 degrees, set them off to the other side of the burner, or you could even just do it in your oven. It's great if you can do it with a little smoke because you get all that flavor, but don't let that stop you from making them. Now I started some about 3 hours ago. Let's have a look at how they're doing in the smoker. And they are doing pretty good. They feel nice and soft to the touch. If I was to test these for temperature right now, they'd be around 190 degrees. And you can see that they have a real mahogany look on them from low, slow cooking at about 250 degrees for about 3 hours. Now, at this point, you could eat them and they'd be really, really tasty. but it's fun to add some sauce to the game. And for that, you're gonna need just about 30 more minutes of cooking and a sauce. So I just took some straight up Bullseye barbecue sauce and I added a little bit of hot honey to it. Now I'm gonna take my pork bites, I'm just gonna throw them in it, just give them a little tossy toss in the sauce. You don't want them swimming, you just want them lightly coated, and then once they are, just go ahead and dump them right back on your sheet, spread them out a little bit, and they need about 20 or 30 more minutes just to get good and sticky. Now, I did a set of these earlier, and let's take them out and have a look. And there are some finished pork belly bites made with pork belly, spice rub, a little bit of your own homemade barbecue sauce, and they're perfect for a summer sitting on the deck with a cold beverage. Let's see what Dana's paired with these.
I am going to share with you a cider, a beer, and a wine that will go beautifully with the pork belly. So the first one we're going to talk about is the cider. So this is the cider that I chose. It's a local cider, which I think is important to support local businesses. And this cider is a fruit-based, as they all are. It's apples, but it's also passion fruit. So the blend of the fruits is perfect to go with the pork belly. There's also a beer, and this one is an IPA, and it's has a lot of hops, but it has a smidge of sweetness, which is a brilliant pairing. And then finally, I have a Riesling, of course, from Germany. Spätlese is the best pairing you can get, but we don't also have that here, a lot of it. So this is just a Riesling, and the sharpness of the Riesling really lends beautifully to the flavor of the pork belly. So these are just 3 options that I have suggested. There are non-alcoholic options as well. You can just do a regular cider, a non-alcoholic beer, and a non-alcoholic wine. But these are just some suggestions that I thought you might want to try with Scott's amazing pork belly, and I cannot wait to try them with him and see what we like the best. Well, this is my favorite part of the segment where we get to try what we've put together. So we have the beautiful pork belly, some extra accoutrement thanks to Scott, and we have our beverages. So I'm going to try the pork belly with the Riesling. What are you going to try, Scott?
I want to try some pork belly too, and I'm going to try a little bit. I'm going to start out with the cider.
Okay.
So, but let's do a little pork belly toast before we get going. Here's to a happy Canada Day.
Absolutely.
And to all the friends and family in our and your lives. Happy Canada Day.
Cheers.
Worth the wait. Oh my goodness, it's so good. Happy
Enjoy.
Canada Day.
Amazing.
Sticky fingers.
Amazing.
Cheers. Good pick, Dana.
Oh, thank you.
That brings an end to this episode of Rogers TV's Canada Showcase. Be sure to catch the other episodes in this series for more stories from across the country. I'm Mike Vecchio. Thanks for watching.